Well, can I
All right,
start?
so we can
Okay.
begin.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming. And the idea to do this, we'll call it a presentation. It's just to really share with you what the process, was for this residency, how I applied and how everything came about. So, for some of you that don't know my full name, I'm Doris Nogueira-Rogers. I'm originally from Brazil, and I have been in the Philadelphia area since '78. And one thing that it's really amazing and to me, and is the fact that I finally could produce a print at Brandywine Workshop. And this came about with the Joyce De Guatemala Scholarship Fund, which really is kind of an incentive for Latina artists to apply and produce a print. We'll call it a master print. So when I had to go through the application process, so you just follow whatever, the papers, and like any other application, they want to know, your thoughts and your bio, and most of all, your images, of your work, and what do you think you would get out of this? What's your purpose for applying? And so after going through a process of how do you say, a panel, I don't know, how do I say, a panel review, a panel review. They choose, an artist for this. So I was the lucky one, let's put it that way. And at the same time, feel really honored to be at Brandywine. So just so you can understand a little bit, I mean, this is just one of the samples of my work, maybe like the aesthetics of some of my works. I always did, in this case, mixed media. I have pastels and inks, how do you say, silk screen and some block prints. I always worked with very bold, block printing. So the thing was, how could I do something that it is will be a totally new technique for me, which is the offset lithography. But at the same time, I've done maybe lithography, just one color lithography on the stone, at flash. And now this is your opportunity to work with a professional printer. I personally like to do some sketches, and I write. It sometimes comes out in Portuguese, sometimes in English. It depends. So I put a lot of ideas down, and then I started making them the size that they told me. So I knew I was going to produce a print, which is let's say the average size, 22 by 28, I believe. It can be horizontal or vertical. So I just started and doing more and more studies, and I started, the way I do it, I cut things and I put on top. And so if you notice, and then I did some block prints. What if I added, certain images? And all these works that you see here, the opportunity of being here quiet with your music, as many hours as you want, as many hours as you can be here during that period, in this case was, usually it's 3 months, but for me it extended a little more because I kind of went on my own many times. So I also had the opportunity, in my case, I brought some of my linoleum cuts. I printed some things to try out. Brandywine gave me some really beautiful papers to experiment. So I think there was a lot of opportunity to experiment, with some of the techniques I knew, but always thinking, where this is going to take me. So it got to the point that we would then start working the mylars. So under their direction, because I have never done this way, I've done some silk screen. When you do your mylars, take somewhere, they make, your screen, you bring it back. But here, working side by side with Gustavo, and also having the artistic direction of Alan, because there were some suggestions that they made. Why? To me, my anxiety was that I always worked very bold and very flat sometimes, with textures, but in a way flat. By looking at all the prints that have been produced and done here, what really, fascinated me was like that transparency that you get. And I would just ask, but okay, but how do I do that? How do I get to that? So we really went, and if you notice, this was my Mylar number 1. Just the Mylar by itself, I find them to be so beautiful, right? Number 1, so I end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe I have 4 and 5. So I really had 5 colors to print, and then working, like I said, what's really, I think, important, and what makes it be so different is the fact that you work with someone that it's really expert in that technique. So after all those Mylars, then I ended up with my print. So, and my thing was, but how do I get to that? How do I make the transparency? So that's when they really come, to be like a collaboration. Because, like it or not, we do, you don't have to be a printmaker to do this. You can be a painter or a sculptor or something. It's just someone that would like to be here to try something new, and end up with what I would call a master print, because I don't know, am I going to have an opportunity to do this again? I don't know, I would love to. So, any questions so far?
So what kind of printing techniques do you get to learn when you are here? So is it like...
It's the offset lithography, but you can also do silkscreen, because I did have the opportunity. I even have, you can, if you look at the table, I still have, the screen there, and I'm going to just move here very quickly. This is something that it's still on the process. I also could, this one is silk screen. So there's like 3 screens here. The first, just the light yellow, then the darker yellow, this. But I'm still working on this. To be honest with you, it got to the end that once I printed the next color, I personally didn't like it. It wasn't what I had in mind, because I was trying to work with this, with this thing that it's a plant from the Amazon, and I'm starting to do some things with pharmacy of the Amazon. So I wasn't happy with it. So Gustavo and we decided stop, and then it's okay. I can come back and work on that. So there is the opportunity to also doing, some silk screen. It all depends how, you work and how much time you can, apply to your residency. I really try to be here as much as I could. They gave me a key, so you can come earlier if you, can be here 8:30 or 9. It's okay from 8:30 on, and they are usually here, until certain hours. But you can come and go. The only thing that you really then need is to set up the time to be side by side with your printer, because then you do depend on them, But he would do all the burning of the Mylars for us. Gustavo would do everything.
And you learned that process as well? Do you learn how to...
Yes, you do. But when you do the offset, you do need a printer, right? It's a big machine. It's a thing that I know I would never gonna do that.
Right.
To do, this here, you need a printer with you. I'm not a printer, an offset printer. So I know, personally, I could never maneuver that thing. Right. So, but that's why, this is a great opportunity. Where would we really have someone working side by side with you, So, anything else? I guess we covered everything, right? Pretty much.
It seems that it was pretty fluid for you as an artist to be able to not only have offset lithography, but the silkscreen and the linocut. So you were, I think it really shows how how it opened you up to
Yes.
many different
Yes.
materials
Yes.
and space. So it's great.
That's the thing, because even, you see, I got so excited about it, that very large fabric piece I have. I've had that, let's call it a canvas, that woven canvas, for almost 11 years. I had it in my studio, and I never did anything with it because I was always looking for the right time, the right opportunity, especially having the time, you know. And believe it or not, this gave me that time. And we had 3 tables put together, and that thing was here on top, and I just worked, you know, again with another process of printmaking, doing stenciling, you know, doing the stencils on Mylar, cutting each stencil and doing it at my own time. But where would I have the opportunity to have that big piece and just taking the time to do it and all that? So it really, that's what I think was really special, and you know.
And when you're working, is it usually all manual? Do you get to work with like computers? Like if you have like, I design, when I'm designing, I play with computer and drawings, and
Well,
I kind
thank
of
you.
mesh.
I personally don't, because I have a computer phobia, but that's my own personal, I'm technologically challenged. But I know that it doesn't matter. Once you come with your idea, you know, and they are going to be, because whatever you come up with is going to have to go on the Mylar, right? Because Marta has done a color one, a full color one, in just a black and white. So you would have to do the separations of your color anyway. But I don't think, regardless where, you know, it's coming from, if it's just hand painted or, you know, or how do you, and again, that's something that they are here to tell you. How do you put that onto your Mylar?
And in the past, if you have like a digital image,
Yeah.
we've sent it out to get
Yeah.
Just
transferred
transfer to the
once.
Mylar
Yeah.
if
So
it's directly from the computer.
Right.
yeah,
Well,
so the budget is about, it's $2,500.
Yeah.
So whatever you can do with that budget.
right. Right.
The printing
Yeah.
time comes out of that, but it's just like a matter of, you know, making the decisions early
Yeah.
on, and
Yeah.
then you can just run with it.
Exact. For me, I really started because there were times that I was by myself and this and that, and I really needed, I couldn't do anything because I don't know, you know, how to put that on the plate, and I needed, you know, their expertise. That's when I started just working with whatever papers I trimmed, you know, I said, oh, I can do something with this paper. And that's how it started growing, because I just recycled a lot of discarded papers, discarded things that I found around, that Gustavo gave it to me. Sometimes when you were trying, you know, something, because that's the way I work anyway, collaging and sewing things together. So it was a perfect, you know, marriage, you know, in that sense. So when you try, you know, you just whatever you're doing, so you turn the paper, you're trying your colors and all, even those papers, then I said, oh, I can turn this into something else. And that's when the idea of weaving those pieces of papers that I had discarded, I started creating on top of that. So, you know, again, you have the opportunity, if that's the way you want to go, you know, you go. So you can be as creative as you wish to be. And I think that's a good thing, right?
Doris, for being the first recipient, you know, and for being a part of this, I have to tell you that I'm just so proud of you. The work is so beautiful. And is there any place, what would you say is the most exciting part about this master print? That you can share it with others? Is it going anywhere right now?
Well, right now, I just heard, one went to France, I mean, it's awful to say, but went to France already.
To France?
Yeah, to Paris. I mean, sad enough, you know. Actually, I was supposed to be in France this week, and we had to cancel our trip, and I think it was a blessing after all. But, and I just heard from Alan Edmonds that one of my prints has been already on its way to the museum in Arizona. So, I mean, that's the other thing that it's so important to know, that once we become, you know, you produce something here, we will become part of their Brandywine's permanent collection and archives. But also, a lot of these prints, you know, they might go with whatever collection, you know, that they ends up at a museum. And I know for a fact that I believe the collection has been already like 14 different museums in the country. I know for Marta Sanchez, for instance, you're now part of the Philadelphia Museum of Art collection, right? And you will be part of the, in Texas, right? The museum. So I mean, so that's another thing that I personally find so exciting, you know?
Also on the portal, right?
Yes, I believe it will become part of that. The digital, yes, yes. So hopefully it will become part of the digital portal, which will be then, I mean, it can go, I mean, any place in the world in a way, no? So there are good things to look ahead, you know, it looks forward to look forward.